Market Talk with Suraj Bakurel.
Welcome to Artha Sarukar. At today's program, we have Heshana Kuruppu as our guest. Let's welcome him to our show. Mr. Kuruppu, welcome to the show.
Namaste.
Here in Nepal, we basically, when we talk about economic recession and when we talk about economic downfall and all, we give an example of Sri Lanka here, and many parliament members, they also give example of Sri Lanka. Some months ago, when we listened about Sri Lanka's economic situation, or let's say political situation too, we heard that the situation was so bad and so wrong. What was the real situation of Sri Lanka? Was it a bad economic situation, or was it a political situation, or what was it?
Sri Lanka was running twin deficit for prolong of years. I think since independence we have had only one or two instances having budget surplus. Right throughout primary account and the budget we were running a deficit. On the other hand, external account, balance of payment and trade account also, we were having a deficit. So if you have a deficit in your income versus expenditure, how do you fund it? In a corporate world, you borrow. So that borrowing, either you take it through domestic market or from the international market. So now when you have economy where policies are more people driven, concessions are offered, you obviously have a higher expenditure because you have to maintain public sector, you have to run subsidies programs, and there are transfers, state-owned enterprises are running at loss, all that is there. So you have to fund that through revenue. That revenue is not sufficient, you then borrow. Then let's say you have now borrowed locally as well as internationally. For your international borrowings, you have to repay. For you to repay, there needs to be adequate dollar revenue generated. As an import-export, if you consider goods sector, trade account, roughly let's say if you are exporting 10 billion worth goods, what our import is almost double, 21 to 22 billion. So there is trade account deficit of around 10 billion. So that is to a certain extent matched by foreign remittances and service income. But still, there was no enough funds coming through the foreign flows. So what is the ultimate outcome? Now you have run local account deficit. There is foreign account and outflow also having a deficit. So though you have borrowed, now borrowed funds you can't repay because there is this particular continuous deficit running. And due to COVID, there was two major impacts that happened. One actually was remittances, because people started moving back to the country. Foreign employees lost their opportunities, so they had to come back and foreign flows came down. Then our peak of the time, we used to get around $4 billion revenue from tourism per annum. That was around 2018. I think we had around 2.4 million tourists coming, and we had around 4 billion revenue, dollar revenue. So you know what happened after 2020. So this revenue stream became zero.
That means, was it a post-pandemic effect, or it was like a mismanagement of a loan and all?
So what happens is, let's say even a company, you are running on borrowings and banks are funding you, you repay, again borrow, repay. So there's a cycle. So there is there is a company operation that is running, and then you buy stock, sell it. There is some margin you make, and you settle your borrowers, and you continue that role. But let's say a bank comes and pulls out your facility, or suddenly there is major buyer saying, I'm not placing orders with you. So what will happen? You are going to get stuck and you can't repay. So this is what happened, and the situation was so bad. Tourism income didn't come, foreign remittances were so low, and you don't have this foreign cash flow now coming in, and there is foreign repayments kicking in. So without having that continuous flow, you get to a holding and grinding holes. So that's what happened. So then you didn't have way of importing your fuel. So that fuel, not having fuel led to power cuts. Not having power led to people not having way of getting even transportation. And then it became a social issue.
How long did this situation took away in Sri Lanka?
I think it was almost 4 to 5 months. It was gradual build up.
How was it managed after that?
So I think if you read, because there were changes, including because of the unrest, the government that was in power, the president resigned, new president came to power, and with the government that was there, new ministers came, and central bank also new governor was appointed, including Secretary of the Treasury. So they actually took some drastic policy decisions because we were running a kind of expansionary economic policies. Interest rates were low, and exchange rate was to a certain level controlled exchange rate. So they let the market forces to determine it, and policy rate were increased almost 7% immediately, and I think towards another quarter it went up to around 10% because they had to control inflation and money supply. So that part was controlled, and then exchange rate also allowed to happen through market forces, and the exchange rate, which was around 202, suddenly went up to 300, and finally there was even black market going up to 350, 400 levels. But it gradually eased off and came to a settlement. So I believe again policy actions that the central bank and government took gradually helped recovering, settling these issues. Then some of the neighboring countries, including India, supported during this period, including medicine as well as fuel. So that actually was a helping hand. So then we managed to build reserves gradually, because reserves were almost zero. We didn't have any usable reserves. Since imports were controlled completely, so no imports allowed, and exports continue to then go ahead with their plan, and we managed to gradually, a monthly basis, 200-300 million was added to the reserves.
Okay, today is the condition everything fine, or it's in a recovering phase?
I don't say everything fine, but yes, definitely we are in a recovery phase. Negative trend that we observed quarter on quarter has reversed. So now we are seeing a positive sentiment, including businesses as well as GDP. We see a positive growth. So why I said not everything fine, because the inflation in terms of month on month and year on year has come to a single digit, let's say 5% to 6%. But it doesn't mean cost of living is low. So cost of living compared to 2022 pre-economic crisis versus now, there is a very high cost of, because as I mentioned, we are having so much of imports, and imports were originally priced at 202, now it's priced at 315 or 320 rupees. So then your domestic market prices have gone up, and interest rate also was a bit high towards first 2 years. So that has led to higher cost of living. To that extent, the income levels have not got adjusted. So obviously disposable income has come down, and due to the twin deficit, primary account and budget deficit I mentioned earlier, government had to increase taxes. So not only corporate tax, including individual tax. So individual tax increase has led to again higher taxes and lower disposable income. So that is why general public feels still the pinch, and there is no adequate, mainly the fixed income earners and middle income category, they have impact due to the same, and it is still reflected in the domestic market demand as well. So that's why I said there is a bit more improvement that needs to happen for economy to come back to the previous levels.
As you are president of CA Sri Lanka as well and SAFA as well, so what do you think that the role can be played by CA professionals there in economic development and all?
Yeah, I think the chartered accountants have been playing their role right throughout because if you take accountant's role, you can divide it into mainly two. One is professional accountant in business, the other one is professional accountant in practice. So the professional accountant business, if I take our membership, almost 90% of the chartered accountants are serving in the corporate sector. I think during this recession period, they somehow managed to support their businesses, sail through that difficult period, manage the cash flows, and I think they are unsung heroes. That's how they managed to take these businesses forward with the leadership. Then professional accountant in practice are the ones who give assurance and advisory services, and they issue their reports, and based on that stakeholders take decisions. I believe we are one of the country who are complying with ethical standards and having high regards for our integrity. So in that sense also we have been able, because your report needs to be trusted by the stakeholders including banks. So we believe we have maintained that and even international investors have heavily relied on reports and certifications given by our accountants. So in that sense also we have played economy related private sector and the active role. In addition, our role as a national accountancy organization body, during the crisis also we got engaged with central bank as well as Secretary of the Treasury because we call proposals from our members with regard to their ideas, what are the opportunities that they see for us to come out from this situation, and we compiled, we had several deliberations with government and respective officers. We proposed those ideas came from our members, and we are happy to see even subsequent budgets carried some of those proposals that we made. In addition, now this year onwards, we are taking active role, and we have formed a separate think tank under policy advocacy and economic contribution. So we are inviting not only members but non-members also to come together and play our role, because we have a public interest role as professionals that we need to fulfill. So here we are trying to see if there are policy gaps, if there are policy changes that needs to happen, and driving evidence-based decisions by the public sector. So those things now we are trying to work on. In addition, actually, CA Sri Lanka has actively engaged with public sector to build capacity. So we have formed a separate public sector wing, Association of Public Finance Management. The objective is to improve public finance management of the country, and we have got actually funding from even USAID. We have run several programs to enhance capacity of public sector accountants, public finance management. And last year, to the extent, actually we went to the extent of even offering first of its kind public finance management MBA by CA Sri Lanka, and we are now enrolling MBA scholars from this year onwards. In addition, we have done many other things to enhance public sector capacity through various initiatives. So through these activities, one side as members, other side as a national accountancy organization, we believe we are playing our role, and definitely we are open to suggestions from any part of the world.
And being president of SAFA, you have visited most of the SAARC countries. So what do you believe that what country like Nepal have to learn from Sri Lanka, the condition of Sri Lanka and the way you got rid of it somehow?
Yeah. I don't think Nepal has an issue as such that we encountered, but a few areas I think any country would like to, I think any country will have to be mindful of. These are not any scientific or rocket science things, but first is the debt sustainability. I think that's where we had a huge issue because our debt as a percentage of GDP went up to 120, 115 levels. And when you don't have enough adequate foreign cash flows coming in, that's going to create a huge issue. I think that's something any country will have to be mindful, because if you don't have financial sovereignty, I don't think there is any more independence that you can think of because you are indebted to someone. So I think that's one area the countries have to be mindful. The second is with regard to concessions and subsidies. I think we need to understand there is no free meal. I believe Sri Lanka has come to that realization because any government, that was one of the key political agenda and propaganda that they used to offer to general public and say, let's say if we come to power, we are going to offer fuel at this particular level, or flour at this level, electricity we don't increase prices. So you can give these statements and come to power, but I don't think people also realize there is cost to it. But now they understand, yes, you can enjoy it for a period of time, but your suffering is going to be much longer because we have gone through it. So that's another learning, I believe, for anyone. There is no free lunch. If you get anything subsidized, anything free, that means there is someone who is going to pay for it, or even you will have to pay for it one day. So I think that's another aspect I can think of. Third is cost-based pricing, because I don't think Sri Lanka has been able to adapt market-based or cost-based pricing for utilities, fuel, since independence. I think one government tried to adapt it, but next time they were thrown out because one reason was this cost-based, formula-based pricing. But with this issue, now people also have to come to that realization. You can't have a control price because market is so dynamic. If your input price is changing, that has to be reflected in your output price and what you pay for it. So that's another aspect, because these control prices, subsidies not going to work. The other aspect is government cannot do everything. I think there are areas government has to prioritize, and there are areas that private sector needs to engage. So that segregation needs to be clear. And even if government engage in some of the things, they need to let go and get private sector to do it, because if government tries to do it, it's very unproductive and inefficient ways of doing this. We have seen it, and we are happy that because this crisis in a way was a blessing in disguise, because some of these reforms that we are talking about now, or some of the things that we have done, wouldn't have been possible had not been for the crisis, because we have tried it earlier, it was not executed.
In Nepal also, many times our political leaders says that we're on the way to be Sri Lanka regarding economic recession and all. If someone wants to criticize finance minister here, then they say the country is going to be Sri Lanka very soon. So you are at Nepal now, you have seen the situation of Nepal. So is this a rumor, or the condition of Nepal is fine now? What have you found in Nepal here?
Actually, I have not studied detailed economic indicators of Nepal to give my perspective, but when I went around, when you see activities happening, I don't see there is a major issue that you have encountered, or because people, poverty, difficulties, I think any country you will find it. Even developed countries, you will have set of people who are jobless and having economic constraint. Having said that, whether we are what matters is whether you are in a negative trend or positive trend. So as long as there is a positive trend and some of the weaknesses that I mentioned are not prevailing, I don't think you are going into a similar situation. Sri Lanka also, as I mentioned, it was so unfortunate because some of the policy decisions that were taken had impacted due to COVID and related issues, and there was this cash flow constraint that happened immediately, so we couldn't come out of because we didn't have any buffer. I believe you don't have that issue, so I might have to study a bit to give a perfect answer, but this is only on the surface I am giving it.
When you went to economic recession in 2022, 2023, we read a lot of analysis that rather being economic problem, it was like a political problem in Sri Lanka. How do you define? Was it a political issue or an economic issue, or only an economic issue, or only a political issue?
I think it was an economic issue that created a social unrest, and that social unrest led to a political issue. So that's how I would see it, because since I mentioned earlier with this fuel issue, power cuts, people were so uncomfortable. You can't go to work. If you have to go to work, sometimes you cycle. There were days that you have to work from home. When you try to work from home, there's no electricity. So that created a lot of unrest, and you can't see your parents. They are elsewhere. There is no fuel to go and see them. So and media also has always giving that negative image about the country. So you are always fueled with that pessimistic mindset, and you don't see a solution also coming through. And there is always that negative perception towards politicians. So directly it was going towards the party at power and the politicians who were governing. So since there was no immediate solution, I don't think government could find it immediately also. So then there was this movement build up. People started demanding solutions immediately. It was not coming through, and then the agony went against the government, and it became a political issue. So the president had to resign, new president was appointed. So finally new government, rather the main political party who was governing, they appointed new ministers with the new president, and they started the reform work and negotiations with IMF. So after that, things settled down, and we managed to get IMF facility, and now we are on IMF program.
When you talk about economic problems, economic recession, and any other economic situation, the capital market, or let's say share market of the country, it's highly affected. So how did you find what did you find at share market?
Yeah, I think share market also, obviously, when you have downgrade, because as soon as you have a preemptive default, because 2022 April or March and towards April, we announced our creditors that there's going to be a difficulty of making payments, so we call it a preemptive default. So when that happens, obviously the country credit rating gets downgraded. So with that downgrade, foreign outflows happens. Foreign investors will not place their money in the stock market. So stock market was earlier, there was, let's say, I exactly can't remember the percentage, but at least 30 to 40% there was foreign players. But it eventually reversed, because foreign players will not place money when your country is having economic difficulty. But now, and market is predominantly controlled by retailers at the moment. But we see gradually foreign investors coming in, and I'm hopeful with the foreign debt restructuring negotiations that are happening, and when it's concluded, we will have upgrade in our debt rating, and more foreign funds also will come into the market. And then we have seen a positive trend actually over last if you take last quarter, January to February there was a drop in all share price index, but February beginning to March, towards March beginning, there is a almost 3 to 4% increase in all share price index, and there's a positive trend. And then someone who is willing to invest, I think still this is an attractive market. If you look at financial service sector, some of the well-run banks, their valuations are price to book value of almost 50 to 60% of price to book value. And any investor, I believe those are opportunities available. If they carefully do and do the fundamentals, they can still make those investments.
What do you believe, how long will it take to Sri Lanka to get everything back to normal?
I would say at the moment we are back to normal, but if you ask me when we'll get the back to normal income levels, that's the question. I think we'll have to see. I feel because I'll answer it this way now, our per capita income, GDP per capita in 2017 or 18, we hit highest per capita in our history, $4,400 US. Now end of 2023 it has come down to 3,400. So there is almost $1,000 difference per capita in terms of dollar terms, because one reason is obviously rupee depreciation. So when you divide it by higher the rupee value, so your per capita comes down. So 4,400 levels, I believe, was the level that people enjoyed their life. Imports were affordable. Now we see pinch of it. So at least if I take parity, that level, I believe we will take another 4 to 5 years for us to reach that 4,400 level. For that to happen faster, we might have to get a few more foreign investments coming in and get higher growth rate. So unless that happens, I think at least another 3 to 4 years.
Okay, Mr. Kuruppu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I wish you all the very best, and I'm hopeful that Nepal will not have issues, and as a neighboring country, I'm sure this country has a lot of potential to move forward and grow.
Okay viewers, that was all for today. Thank you for watching. Namaste.
Market Talk with Suraj Bakurel.